Welcome back to DeepVisus, where vision meets depth. I'm your host, and in today's episode, we're embarking on a fascinating journey into the electrical landscape of the brain, exploring how its complex activity patterns can be modeled and understood, especially during profound state changes like those induced by anesthesia. Our deep dive today is guided by chapters 14 and 15 from the insightful book Neural Fields Theory and Applications, published in 2014. Specifically, we'll be drawing from chapter 14, Neural Field Modeling of the Electroencephalogram, Physiological Insights and Practical Applications, by David T.J. Liley, and chapter 15, Equilibrium and Non-Equilibrium Phase Transitions in a Continuum Model of an Anesthetized Cortex, by D. Alistair Steyn-Ross, Moira L. Steyn-Ross, and Jamie W. Sleigh. So, for today's central question, how do changes in brain state, particularly under the influence of anesthetics, manifest in our brain's large-scale electrical activity, and what can physics-inspired models tell us about these dramatic transitions from consciousness to unconsciousness and back again? To begin, let's talk about the electroencephalogram, or EEG. This is a non-invasive measure of the brain's electrical activity, recorded from electrodes placed on the scalp. For a long time, the EEG was considered too coarse to reveal much about the brain's inner workings. However, recent advances and a deeper understanding of cortical organization have brought it back into the spotlight as a crucial tool for understanding brain function, especially its rhythmic patterns. To make sense of the vast complexity of billions of neurons, researchers use mean field models. Instead of trying to simulate every single neuron and its connections, these models simplify the system by focusing on the average activity of large populations of neurons. They replace individual interactions with effective averages, allowing us to study large-scale brain dynamics in a tractable way, while still retaining physiological and anatomical relevance. Chapter 14 by David Liley outlines one such mean field approach. It successfully explains the genesis of rhythmic EEG activity, a process called electrorhythmogenesis, in the mammalian brain. A key finding from this model is that the familiar alpha rhythm, those 8 to 13 Hz oscillations often observed when you close your eyes, is not just a passive idling rhythm. Instead, it's hypothesized to be a marginally stable rhythm, meaning it's poised right on the edge of stability, ready to transition to other states. Crucially, this model highlights that inhibition is a highly sensitive control point for these brain rhythms. When we talk about inhibition in the brain, we're often referring to the action of GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, which is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter. It works by making neurons less likely to fire, often by prolonging the IPSP, or inhibitory postsynaptic potential, which is a temporary hyperpolarization of the neuron's membrane. The Liley model shows how both endogenous factors, like neurosteroids during the menstrual cycle, and exogenous factors, like general anesthetics, can systematically alter EEG patterns by modulating GABAergic activity. For instance, anesthetics are known to prolong the inhibitory postsynaptic potential, leading to characteristic changes in the EEG, such as the beta buzz, an initial increase in faster beta waves, and a subsequent biphasic response, a transient increase in total EEG power. Now, building on this foundation, Chapter 15 by Steyn-Ross and colleagues takes a remarkable step by framing the process of anesthesia as a phase transition in the cerebral cortex. They draw a powerful analogy to the familiar vapor-to-liquid phase transition of a van der Waals gas in classical thermodynamics. Imagine a gas condensing into a liquid. The high-firing, conscious up state of the cortex is like the low-density vapor phase. The low-firing, comatose down state is like the high-density liquid phase. Anesthetic concentration acts like pressure, pushing the system to change state. And subcortical excitation is analogous to temperature. This analogy predicts that as anesthetic concentration increases, the brain can undergo an equilibrium phase transition, shifting abruptly from the up state to the down state. At the critical point, the precise moment where these two states become indistinguishable, the model predicts critically slowed fluctuations. These are large, slow, noise-induced fluctuations in cortical activity that can explain the paradoxical excitatory EEG responses, sometimes resembling delirium, observed as a patient approaches unconsciousness. The model also accounts for hysteresis in anesthesia. This means that the level of anesthetic required to induce unconsciousness is often higher than the level required for a patient to regain consciousness. This neural inertia helps preserve the current behavioral state, whether awake or asleep. But the brain isn't always in a simple equilibrium. Chapter 15 also explores non-equilibrium phase transitions, where the brain's homogeneous activity can destabilize into more complex, dynamic patterns. Hopf temporal instability leads to coherent whole-of-cortex oscillations. These uniform, rhythmic waves across the entire brain might, in some contexts, be associated with pathological states like grand mal seizures. A Turing spatial instability results in the formation of stationary, structured patterns of cortical activity, like islands of low activity surrounded by higher activity. This phenomenon is influenced by gap junctions, which are direct electrical connections between neurons, allowing for rapid, diffusive spread of activity. So when both Hopf and Turing instabilities interact, the model predicts the emergence of complex, chaotic spatiotemporal patterns, such as slow traveling waves across the cortex. The authors propose that this turbulent dynamic may correspond to the slow oscillations observed during non-REM sleep and clinical anesthesia. In conclusion, these two chapters, through the powerful lens of mean field modeling, provide profound physiological insights into the large-scale electrical activity of the brain. They demonstrate how the subtle balance of excitation and inhibition, particularly under the influence of pharmacological agents, can drive the brain through distinct dynamical states. From the genesis of the alpha rhythm to the complex transitions of anesthesia, these models reveal that brain states are not static points but dynamic phase transitions, characterized by unique patterns of activity and fluctuations. This understanding not only deepens our knowledge of normal brain function and disease but also offers practical applications, such as improving the clinical monitoring of anesthesia depth. This exploration into the brain's dynamic electrical landscape is just one facet of the incredible complexity that neuroscience is unraveling. Join us next time on DeepVisus, as we continue to explore the intricate ways vision meets depth in the fascinating world of brain science. Stay tuned.